So we took precautions. Now, one thing you mentioned in your proposal was the amount of prudence. That's essential. Is the government of Canada fiscally, because we can't manage monetary policy, we manage the fiscal policy, do we have prudence built in?
I don't think so.
You don't think we have as much as we would like?
There's not...
Colleagues. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I haven't had a chance to welcome Kathleen Wynne's former Minister of Finance to the House of Commons. I want to congratulate him on joining us. He shared with us his deep concern for fiscal responsibility. He just asked who balanced the books. Stephen Harper balanced the books.
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased that we have the Parliamentary Budget Officer with us at committee today. Sir, could you start by telling us what is Canada's current national debt?
So the number, I had it handy and I've lost the page, but it's roughly speaking, it's about $1.5 trillion. So slightly lower than that, $1.2 trillion based on our most recent economic and fiscal outlook.
Okay, so Canada has a debt of a federal national debt of $1.2 trillion. What was Canada's total national debt in the year 2015 when Prime Minister Justin Trudeau took power?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I don't have historical numbers. Sorry.
Okay, do you recall approximately?
Approximately, that would be around $500 to $600 billion, if my memory serves me well.
Okay, so $500 to $600 billion was the national debt in 2015 when Justin Trudeau took office. It is $1.2 trillion now, and you're using an approximate figure historically. But are you fairly confident that the national debt has more than doubled in the 8 years that Justin Trudeau has been Prime Minister?
If not more than, close to. So, given I'm going on memory here, I wouldn't want to be too definitive.
So if not exactly, then approximately. The debt servicing costs projected for this fiscal year, what are the total debt servicing costs, the costs associated with having that debt?
We estimate that these will be $46.4 billion in the current fiscal year.
And according to the numbers that I have, that is a significant increase in debt servicing costs over last year. That's because, if I understand correctly, because of an increase in interest rates.
Yes. Last year, we estimate these numbers to have been $34.8 billion, and we'll have final numbers when the government tables the public accounts.
Okay. Since the current Prime Minister is responsible for about half of the national debt, it follows that the debt accumulated during that period, that the total debt servicing costs we're paying, half of those are as a result of debt accumulated in the last 8 years. Is that correct?
Not exactly. We need to look at the historical debt and what's the composition of that debt, because debt that was incurred, for example, in the 1990s would be at a higher interest rate, and there would be still some of that debt that we are carrying on our books. So half is a rough approximation, but that may overstate it slightly.
Okay. All right. So as that old debt has to be renewed, we renew it at the current interest rates, which may be lower than they were in the 90s, but still, let's say, substantially higher than they were 2 or 3 years ago, as a result of the various factors that have led to an increase in the cost of borrowing for government as well as for Canadians. So, in terms of that debt servicing cost, $46.4 billion, could you give Canadians a sense of what else could have been purchased for that amount of money? What, in terms of healthcare transfers or other needs that Canadians have, what is that value equivalent to?
Well, I can give you a couple of numbers to put these things in perspective. Elderly benefits this year will be $76 billion. So that's providing old age security and guaranteed income supplement to all seniors. Employment insurance this year will be $23 billion. So employment insurance, parental, regular EI, maternity, etc., will be $23 billion.
Okay, so that's an interesting thought experiment, just to interrupt you there. So if this Prime Minister is responsible for debt that led to about half of the debt servicing costs, then we're paying, you say it could be a little less than that. So let's say we're paying $20 to $23 billion in debt servicing costs associated with this Prime Minister's debt. That's the equivalent to doubling employment insurance, doubling the value of maternity leave for everyone. We could be doing that, let's say, instead of paying debt servicing costs.
That's one interpretation. I wouldn't want to be the one stating that because I need to do a bit more analysis.
You're very precise, sir, and I appreciate that. Overall, your estimate is $46.4 billion in debt servicing costs. Roughly half, maybe slightly less, solely the responsibility of this Prime Minister who's doubled our national debt in the last 8 years. I think it's clear that he is not worth the cost, and I thank you for your hard work and analysis.
And I'm not going to be able to give you time for a response, but perhaps at another time, such as Mr. Baines, who's up for 5 minutes, please.
So we took precautions. Now, one thing you mentioned in your proposal was the amount of prudence that's essential. Is the Government of Canada fiscally, because we can't manage monetary policy, we manage the fiscal policy, do we have prudence built in?
I don't think so.
You don't think we have as much as we would like?
There's not...
Colleagues, I'm going to interrupt for a second. I understand we're all having a lot of fun, but please, let's allow a question and answer. And I hate to sound like the speaker, but please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I haven't had a chance to welcome Kathleen Wynne's former Minister of Finance to the House of Commons. I want to congratulate him on joining us. He shared with us his deep concern for fiscal responsibility. He just asked who balanced the books. Stephen Harper balanced the books. He's concerned about fiscal responsibility. He wants us to believe, and I can only say that if Kathleen Wynne's finance minister is the voice of fiscal responsibility in the Liberal caucus, then we have even bigger problems than I thought we did. We heard previously that Canada is going to spend this year $46.4 billion on debt servicing. So that's not new spending, that's not new debt, that is just money that taxpayers' money that we have to spend to maintain the debt that we already have. And that's in a context where the current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has more than doubled the national debt. To the Parliamentary Budget Officer, my understanding is that $46.4 billion figure, how does that compare to the total amount that the federal government transfers to the provinces for health care?
It's slightly lower than the transfers Canada Health Transfer, which this year is expected to be $49.4 billion.
Okay. So 46.4 to 49.4. So with about a $3 billion difference, we transfer a similar amount of money to the provinces for health care as this government spends on servicing the debt. So hypothetically, if we didn't have debt in this country, we could actually double the transfers we're sending to provinces. And if we didn't have the debt that was accumulated under this government, we could increase the amount of healthcare transfers to provinces by 40 or 50%. That's the real world impact of the out of control debt and out of control increases in costs associated with debt servicing that have come under this government. And we heard from this government in the past, don't worry, the cost of servicing debt is low because interest rates are low. But they failed to consider the fact that interest rates, of course, go up. Could you confirm, sir, that we've seen significant increases in the costs of debt servicing as a result of the increase in the interest rates?
Yes, that's an important factor.
Okay. And in comparison to last year, you said previously, there's been an over $10 billion increase in debt servicing costs in total as a result of the increase in the interest rate.
Interest rates, but also the increase in the debt stock.
Right. So the government is increasing spending, increasing debt. That's driving inflation, which is increasing costs for consumers. That's leading to increases in the interest rates because of rate hikes that are responding to that. And that is further leading to an increase in the debt servicing costs. Is this a kind of snowballing effect that we're seeing as the government spending is driving increase in various indicators that are all impacting the costs that Canadians have to bear?
It's one factor that contributes to increasing interest rates and increasing inflation, but it's obviously not the only one.
Thank you very much.